Well, joining us in studio now to discuss this further and provide some clarity is political analyst Mr. Levy Ndou. Good afternoon to you, sir. Always a pleasure speaking to you here on ANN7. Was this decision of this mass decision, rather, really such a shock, or was it expected?
Well, good afternoon, Abigail. Good afternoon to the viewers. This decision never came as a shock. You will recall that a few years back, the AU took a decision not to cooperate with the ICC. And that was informed by the fact that there is a perception amongst African leaders and the African citizenry that suggests that the ICC seem to be only targeting and humiliating only African leaders. You'll recall that we have a lot of former and current African leaders that have been called to the ICC for prosecution. And the view that is being expressed there is that there are leaders from outside the continent who have actually behaved in the same manner. And you don't see the ICC treating them equally to their African counterparts. And that is why a decision was taken by the AU, a principled decision to say we did not cooperate with the African Union. And I think when they had to now lastly take this decision in a closed-door session, it was informed by these kind of factors, that the ICC has been created as an instrument to ensure that leaders all over the world are supposed to be treated equally, and there has to be an element of seeing justice being done. And unfortunately, that is not the case in relation to the African leaders.
Mr. Ndou, let's expand on these instances, where African leaders apparently haven't been treated correctly. What do we know? What sort of incidents have we seen take place in the past that could prove this?
There has been a number of instances where the countries of the West, or superpowers, have been involved in the violation of human rights in other countries. You have seen on a number of occasions where the countries of the West would go and attack other countries. And the ICC would not want to have these leaders coming onto the ICC. But we have seen African leaders. You have seen Charles Taylor appearing in the ICC. We have seen the current president of Kenya appearing in the ICC. You know that Omar al-Bashir is actually wanted by the ICC for a number of crimes. And the argument by the African leaders is that we are not saying that these people are innocent, but what we're saying is that what happens on the left should also apply on the right. And unfortunately, that is not the case. And that's why I think the African leaders at some point had to say, let's then develop our own court. You know, there has been a proposal of having an African court where African leaders themselves have to sit and then they get tried in that particular court. What we need to wait and see now is as to whether that court indeed is going to be able to work and actually perform as expected and very realistic to the satisfaction of all the citizens. And that's what we need to wait for. But at the same time, there is one other aspect that we need to look at. That even though we say the ICC is not biased, we have got a responsibility as Africans and as African leaders to behave in a manner that we don't violate the rights of the very same citizens that we serve, and we ensure that we promote peace and stability in the countries that we're actually responsible for.
Mr. Ndou, with regards to the issue of equal accountability, has steps been taken against the ICC for this issue?
Well, there is a number of African leaders maintain that they've tried their best to engage the ICC. You will recall that when South Africa had taken a decision to withdraw from the ICC, there has been a view from a number of quarters that said it is better to fight the ICC from within rather than getting out of the system, because we won't be able to influence decisions within the ICC. And unfortunately, there is an element of dominance in the ICC. The view that seek to be occupying the prominent state says that those judges that sit in the ICC are actually biased against the African leaders. But at the same time, I think Africa need to also develop a better strategy to say, rather than getting out of the system, we can still find ways and means to influence the decision-making within the ICC itself, rather than getting out of the...
And on that note, do you think, this collective exit is more of a positive or a negative for the African continent?
I see it as a strategy to raise a collective voice, to say, we are the signatories of the Rome Statute. We are member states in the ICC. But at the same time, we're saying that we're not happy with the manner in which the ICC is actually running. You'll then recall that even though the decision has been taken, what they maintain is that member states still are not bound to withdraw from the ICC. But this actually sends a very, very clear message to the ICC to say, please put your house in order, otherwise you're going to lose credibility, and a number of African countries have actually started to withdraw from that body.
Just lastly, finally, Mr. Ndou, with regards to Africa's relationship now with the rest of the world, does this decision impact that relationship, would you say?
It might not impact on relations, because relationships are informed by a number of dynamics. Some are actually based on trade, some are based on human resource, some are bilaterals and some are multilaterals. But I don't think it might actually affect the relations. But you know that you have got the Western countries that have got a tendency of bullying African countries, especially those that rely on them economically. And they might actually use this as a strategy to bully these countries to go back and participate in the activities of the ICC.
Well, let's leave it there for now, Mr. Ndou.